And welcome to Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong in Beijing. The headlines we're tracking at this hour. The Communist Party of China honors its outstanding members on its 105th founding anniversary. A private gauge of China's manufacturing sector showed factory activity expanding for a 7th straight month in June as new orders climbed higher. And indirect talks between the United States and Iran begin in Doha. That's as Tehran warns of never compromising on its control of the Strait of Hormuz. All right, let's take a quick look first at the Chinese mainland markets on this Wednesday. The Shanghai Composite Index closed over 0.4% higher, while the Shenzhen Component Index fell by over 0.5%. Now let's take a look at how regional markets performed and how Wall Street closed out overnight. Well, first up, the Communist Party of China has honored its outstanding members on the occasion of the party's 105th anniversary. Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee, conferred the July 1st medals, the party's highest honors in Beijing. CGTN's Zhao Yunfei has more.
The July 1st medal recipients were escorted into the Great Hall of the People, accompanied by 21 motorcycle ceremonial motorcade. Honor guards brought forth the July 1st medal, the party's highest honor. It is awarded to CPC members who have made outstanding contributions to the party and the people. Xi Jinping presented the July 1st medals to each of the recipients. 8 party members received the honor, 1 posthumously. They came from different walks of life, but all have devoted decades to serving the people in their respective fields. Some have spent decades in communities, revitalizing rural areas or advancing scientific innovation. At the gathering, outstanding party members, party workers, and primary-level party organizations from across the country were also honored. General Secretary Xi Jinping delivered a speech. He said the Communist Party of China has fundamentally transformed the future of the Chinese people and pioneered the great path of realizing the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation through 105 years of struggle. The CPC has showcased the great vitality of Marxism and deeply influenced the course of the world's history for over a century.
The party always stands on the right side of history and stands on the side of human progress, and with its tireless endeavor has profoundly changed the trajectory and dynamics of the world. Today, the party is leading the people in advancing Chinese modernization, creating a new form of human advancement, and expanding the pathway of developing countries toward modernization. We advocate for the building of a community with a shared future for humanity, providing Chinese wisdom, Chinese proposal, and Chinese strength for addressing major issues facing humanity. The socialist China, led by the party, is recognized as a builder of world peace, contributor to global development, and defender of international order.
General Secretary Xi urged all party members to strengthen their confidence, keep fighting, and create new achievements worthy of times and the people. Resolving the Taiwan question and realizing China's complete reunification is a historic mission and an unshakable commitment of the CPC.
Full and rigorous self-governance of the party is an ongoing process. On the new journey, we will thoroughly apply the thought on party building in a new era and meet the overall requirements for party building in a new era to strengthen the party's long-term governance capacity, maintain its advanced nature and integrity, and maintain its close bond with the people. We must improve the systems for exercising full and rigorous self-governance of the party, set strengthening ourselves politically as the overarching guide for other initiatives of party building. Keep on fighting the tough, protracted, and overall battle against corruption, and further strengthen the party's ability to lead politically.
In its 105-year history, the Communist Party of China has achieved significant transformations. With a strong sense of mission, the world's largest governing party is bringing new vitality to the country that pursues a path of peaceful development. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN, at the Great Hall of the People.
And Robert Lawrence Kuhn, chairman of the Kuhn Foundation and recipient of the China Reform Friendship Medal, shares his observations on the CPC's role in building China into a modern socialist country.
The 105th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China, the CPC, prompts reflection. Over my 37 years following China, both as participant and observer, I see 12 principles that have brought about China's developmental miracle. 1. A people who work long and hard to improve the lives of their families and the destiny of their country. 2. Prioritizing economic and social development over ideological rigidity. 3. The CPC maintains political stability and encourages economic growth and social development. 4. CPC structure, central government, and 5 levels of local government, provincial, municipal, county, township, and village, enabling clear implementation of policies. 5. CPC personnel, selecting, educating, training, monitoring, and inspecting key personnel. 6. The CPC respects expert opinion, whether in the party or not. 7. The CPC solicits and respects public opinion. 8. The CPC sets long-term goals, mid-term objectives, and short-term policies that are modified and monitored. Policies that require long-term commitment receive long-term commitment. 9. The CPC experiments and tests before implementing and rolling out. For example, the original special economic zones and the more recent pilot free trade zones. 10. The CPC's 5-year plans, leveraging industrial planning and state capital to gain economies of scale. 11. The CPC provides checks and balances via internal debate and relentless anti-corruption drives. 12. The CPC's willingness to admit and correct errors. My friends in China ask me why the world misunderstands the CPC. The problem, I explain, is partly semantics, because the English word party connotes a political party that competes in multi-party elections. The Chinese system is founded on a different principle. The party is the ruling organization, not a competing political party. Thus, it has a higher and broader obligation to enhance the living standards and well-being of all Chinese citizens. This includes reforms, rule of law, transparency in government, public participation in governance, increasing democracy, various freedoms, and human rights. All political systems have trade-offs. And while achieving national objectives is indeed an advantage of China's party-led system, it is not the only criterion for evaluating systems. That's why President Xi Jinping calls for continuing reform, opening up, rule of law, system improvement, and party self-renewal.
Now, one of the Communist Party of China's most significant achievements over its 105-year history has been the complete eradication of absolute poverty. Now, China met its extreme poverty eradication target at the end of 2020 and declared victory the following year. World Bank data shows that from 1981 to 2018, the country lifted some 800 million people out of poverty. That's nearly 75% of the global total over that period. Since the 2020 milestone, the momentum has continued. Official figures revealed that per capita disposable income in formerly poor rural counties jumped from some 12,600 yuan, about $1,850 to 18,600 yuan, or about $2,700. Now, that marks an annual growth of over 8% and above the national rate in helping to shrink the rural-urban income divide. Well, as China marks the 105th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China, I want to get more on the country's economic development and modernization journey. And joining me to talk about this is Zhang Gong, professor of economics at the University of International Business and Economics. Professor, great to have you on the program as always. So, Professor, looking back at the history of the CPC's leadership of China, what do you see as the most significant achievements when it comes to economic development?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, Michael. Or looking back, over several decades of leadership by the Chinese Communist Party, I think the country has really stepping to the international stage and really shoot up to the top of developing countries. We have been averaging nearly double-digit growth up until 2013. And ever since then, we've been still averaging about more than 5%, 6% growth rate. And this is really being done for a population size of 1.4 billion people. And it's unprecedented in human history that to raise such a large population out of poverty to such a level, we are very much close to breaking into the high-income category, the classification scheme by the World Bank, and this is really unprecedented. I think this goes to tell that the party has been indeed delivering what it has promised to the people. It has indeed led the country to a new level, and we're still on a growth path from this point on. So I think the party does have the mandate, does have people's support to continue to lead. And I think this is probably, the most distinguishing factor that distinguishes from other developing countries.
And Professor, at the CPC's centenary celebration back in 2021, the concept of the Chinese path to modernization was formally introduced. Today, it was described as having created a new form of human advancement and expanded the pathways to modernization for developing countries. What would you say distinguishes how China is pursuing its modernization path relative to the modernization paths we have seen throughout history and elsewhere?
Well, I think the distinguishing factor is that China's growth model has been very much centered on a people-centered agenda. We are having an inclusive growth model here that everyone pretty much benefits from the spectacular economic growth for the last few decades. We still pay a lot of attention to environment, for example. We still pay a lot of attention to, eradicating poverty, not letting one family be left behind. And all of these things, I think, it's a very unique model. We call it the socialist market economy with Chinese characteristics. And this is a unique model in the sense that this has never been done before by other countries. And up until now, there are quite a few countries being very enamored with this growth model. I think our government's position is that we're not going to try to export our growth model, but we really like to share our experience for other countries to learn and to study. So from that perspective, I think this is a spectacularly successful growth, economic development story for a large population, 1/5 of the entire world population, and in itself, it contributes greatly to raising the living standard of the entire people in the world. We are contributing to about 1/3 of global growth. Looking back, people's living standards have been raised greatly. We don't have any housing shortages. We don't have people, holding cash, begging on the streets. A very common scene you will run into, for example, in London, in Paris, in New York City, not here in China. I think this is a spectacular success story, and I think the party, the Communist Party, has every reason to celebrate its successful governance over the last few decades.
Well, Professor, like you mentioned, development needs to be inclusive. A rising tide should lift all boats. Through initiatives here in China, such as coordinated regional development and urban-rural integration, China has sought to narrow development gaps and advance common prosperity. Talk to us about the progress you see on these fronts.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we talk about common prosperity, it means a lot of things. It means that bridging the gap between the rich and poor, the east and west regions of China. As we all know, the coastal areas are more developed, and now we're trying to help the western areas of China to develop, to catch up. We're also talking about the gap between rural communities and urban communities. We're also talking about bridging the gap between north of China and south of China. All of these things would be unimaginable in many other countries. But here, we talk about common prosperity, and we need to have a balanced economic growth model, an inclusive economic growth model here. So I think these are things can only be possible with the leadership of the party that has the strong leadership that is determined to continuously reform itself. And these are great things, great achievements by the parties at this point.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the long term, Professor, because amid an increasingly complex and uncertain global environment, China right now is an anchor of stability for the world. How do you see the long term resilience of the Chinese economy?
I think, first of all, we still have a lot of growth potential. I mean, I think we are talking about 5% growth rate at this point. And this momentum, I would say, can at least grow for another 5 to 10 years. And compared to the typical growth rate of a developed country, where we're talking about even 2%, close to 3% is considered very strong growth. We still have many years to go before we reach that point. And I think based on various aspects of our society, of economy, China is very close to the developed country camp. And we're still able to maintain that kind of a growth. People's incomes is going to continue to rise. Today, even throw away all the statistics, you compare the lifestyle of people here living in China with people who live in Europe, for example, in the United States. We're actually pretty good compared to them. And remember, recently there's this heat wave hitting Europe, right? I mean, there are a lot of people in Paris, in London, who don't even have air conditioning. They're dying for air conditioning at this point. But here, practically every family has access to air conditioning. We definitely, in this very heated summer days, people in China live a better life than people in Europe. that we can, safe to say that.
Okay, Professor, many thanks for your insights on all of that. Stay with us. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. It's still to come here on Global Business. A private gauge of China's manufacturing sector showed factory activity expanding for a 7th straight month in June as new orders climbed higher.
Marking a milestone that changed China and the world. 105 years since the founding of the Communist Party of China. How it began as a revolutionary movement and evolved into a ruling party that's transformed China into a thriving economic powerhouse. Adjusting course over the decades, meeting challenges, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, winning their trust and support, driving innovation at scale and working hard to lay the groundwork for the industries of the future, and guiding a modern prosperous nation at a time of rapid global change. Commemorating 105 years. Special coverage only on CGTN.
All right, now let's turn to China's key economic data out today. The country's manufacturing sector sustained its solid recovery, marking the 7th consecutive month of expansion in June. According to data jointly published by S&P Global and Rating Dog, China's manufacturing PMI came in at 51.7 for June, easing just ever so slightly from May's reading of 51.8 and hitting a 3-month low, though still edging past the forecast of 51.6. Importantly, the reading remains well above that key 50-point threshold that separates growth from contraction. Meanwhile, a separate official survey by the National Bureau of Statistics, which places greater emphasis on large and medium-sized enterprises compared to the Rating Dog PMI, showed manufacturing PMI edging up to 50.3 in June. Well, China's Sany Truck has recently set a new industry benchmark with an export order of 883 electric heavy trucks, the largest single order of its kind globally. And these electric trucks are expected to save overseas customers some $22 million annually in energy costs, while reducing carbon emissions by some 80,000 tons per year. Now, China exported a total of 877 electric heavy trucks in all of 2025, meaning this single order has already surpassed last year's total, signaling an acceleration in Chinese electric commercial vehicle exports. Well, the world's largest vehicle carrier, also known as a roll-on, roll-off, or ro-ro ship, has been delivered in Guangzhou this week. It holds the global capacity record and marks a new milestone in China's ability to mass-produce these mega ships. In the first quarter of this year, China continues to lead the world in shipbuilding completion, new orders, and order backlogs. And this latest carrier is expected to further strengthen its position in the global market. Our Huang Fei reports.
China has delivered the world's biggest vehicle carrier again. Not once, not twice, but the third megaship of its kind. Each vessel can carry 10,800 vehicles at once, electric cars, hydrogen-powered vehicles, and heavy-duty trucks. So just how big is this ship? It's 230 meters long, 40 meters wide, with a deck area equal to 10 football fields. But this isn't just about size.
Compared with our first 10,000-car carrier, this vessel features upgraded smart control systems, including AI-powered visual security and 360-degree monitoring, making the ship safer and smarter.
It's also greener. Powered by both liquefied natural gas, or LNG, and conventional fuel, it meets the latest international emission standards.
This type of ship is extremely difficult to build. It requires extensive use of thin steel plates, and we've overcome the challenge of controlling deformation. It's also highly automated, with many roll-on, roll-off systems. These technologies were mostly imported in the past, but now we've achieved full domestic production.
Today, 85% of new shipbuilding orders globally are coming to China. Years of advances in laser technology, robotics, material science, and ship design, backed up by a complete industrial supply chain that helps control costs, maintain quality, and speed up delivery. And the demand is growing, especially from China's booming electric vehicle exports. The new ship will operate across major automotive markets in Asia, Southeast Asia, Europe, and the US. So the next time you see a car at a dealership, remember, it may have crossed oceans on a giant ship like this. Huang Fei, CGTN, Guangzhou.
And turning now to the capital markets, where China's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region cemented its position as one of the world's leading IPO markets in the first half of this year, driven by a wave of AI and advanced technology listings that lifted fundraising to a multi-year high. According to KPMG, Hong Kong's first half IPO tally reached 85 new listings, raising 209.9 billion Hong Kong dollars, or around 26.8 billion US dollars. And both the number of deals and total proceeds more than doubled compared to a year earlier, marking the highest first half total in nearly 5 years and surpassing the combined proceeds of the same period from 2022 to 2025. A-share companies listing in Hong Kong played a major role, accounting for some 58% of total proceeds at 121.7 billion Hong Kong dollars. Deloitte also ranked Hong Kong the world's top IPO market in the first quarter, highlighting momentum that continued through the first half of the year. The market's composition also evolved, with companies in AI, semiconductors, and advanced manufacturing emerging as the dominant force. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong section of the high-speed rail network has added 3 new destinations: Guangzhou North, Yiwu, and Fuqing West, bringing the total number of directly linked mainland destinations now to 113. The cross-border network has expanded steadily since early 2026, emerging as a key travel option for visitors moving between Hong Kong and the Chinese mainland. Right, so as Hong Kong marks the 29th anniversary of its return to Chinese sovereignty, I want to get more on the Special Administrative Region's capital markets and economic development. Professor Zhang Gong from the University of International Business and Economics joins us once more to discuss. Professor, let me begin with the capital markets, because Hong Kong's IPO market has indeed delivered its strongest first half performance in 5 years, driven by tech companies and also by A-share and H-share listings. What does this momentum tell us about Hong Kong's evolving role in connecting global capital with the Chinese mainland's innovation economy?
Yeah, well, first let me emphasize that a lot of these IPOs are associated with companies based in mainland China. This is actually really the driving force for the demand for these IPO listings. And I think the two things that are driving this. First of all, as you mentioned very clearly, that a lot of these IPOs are associated with the AI revolution. New companies in the AI space that are going IPO and need capital, raising capital for their developing to the next stage. And the second reason I want to emphasize is that Hong Kong is actually replacing New York City, New York Stock Exchange, and other stock exchanges in the world for Chinese companies for listing purposes, NASDAQ, for example. And this is actually, also driven by the American government's own actions. They're trying to make it difficult for Chinese companies to be listed on New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, which happened to be a good thing for China. Nowadays, more and more Chinese companies are firstly considering IPO on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. There's enough capital to cater into that market. There's also adequate demand for IPOs from mainland China. So I think it works very well for both sides, from Hong Kong SAR's perspective, also from mainland's perspective. And I think this combination, this model, works out very well for China as a whole.
Right. And Professor, as the global financial landscape continues to evolve, as global geopolitics continue to evolve, what do you see Hong Kong doing to maintain its competitiveness as an undisputed international financial center?
Yeah, well, Hong Kong has always been wonderful, playing a wonderful role in the world, and also from China's perspective, and as a window to the world from our perspective, from mainland China's perspective. Nevertheless, let me also point out that Hong Kong is actually gone through its up and downs. There was a time that people outside of China bad-mouthing Hong Kong, saying that writing off Hong Kong is a financial hub, saying that Chinese are gone. There's also a bit of a capital exodus from Hong Kong. But nowadays, things are coming back. You see, for example, the housing prices in Hong Kong are starting to recover. You see more and more professionals in the financial sector, for example, coming back to Hong Kong, lawyers coming back to Hong Kong. There's plenty of business to go around. And I think the traditional role of Hong Kong being a financial hub in Asia, very much centered on business associated with mainland China, is coming back. And more than that, it's also more and more evolving to a international financial and monetary center because of its very unique role, and also as China's currency. RMB is getting more and more internationalized. Now there's a very vibrant offshore RMB market in Hong Kong, so issue with investments, issue with issuing bonds, and also as a wealth vehicle, investment vehicle. So all of these things are happening at the same time, and in that sense, Hong Kong's traditional role is coming back, and it's actually evolving to something even new compared to its past heydays.
And Professor, under the one country, two systems policy, how do you see Hong Kong further strengthening its role as a super connector, as it's commonly known, to support the Chinese mainland's high-level opening up, while at the same time providing that key base for which multinational companies can better leverage economic opportunities here on the Chinese mainland?
Yeah, I think the statistics are speaking for themselves. Look at the companies moving back to Hong Kong. You look at the more and more Chinese companies going to Hong Kong and getting listed on Hong Kong stock exchanges. All of these things are contributing to the economic development, the growth in Hong Kong. And in addition to this, Hong Kong itself is also evolving. We're starting to see some technology development in Hong Kong as well. Startup companies based in Hong Kong, in combination with operations near cities on the mainland side, sort of more and more evolving to an innovation hub as well. All of these things are boding very well for the future of Hong Kong. As I said, the confidence in Hong Kong is coming back. Housing prices are coming back. And with the strong leadership of the SAR government, supported by the mainland government, central government, and I think there's good days ahead for this wonderful, wonderful city.
Okay, we are going to leave it there. Professor, many thanks for your insights on all of that. That's Professor Zhang Gong from the University of International Business and Economics. And up next here on Global Business. Indirect talks between the United States and Iran begin over in Doha. That's as Tehran warns of never compromising on its control of the Strait of Hormuz.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
New European Union regulations on steel import controls will take effect on July 1st. Now, under the new rules, the bloc will significantly reduce its steel import quotas. Experts say the move could put pressure on some of the EU's downstream industries, which may face higher steel costs as a result. Our reporter Yu Yang explains.
The biggest impact on steel exporters will be the reduction of tariff-free import volumes by roughly 50% from current levels, along with the doubling of the out-of-quota duty from 25% to 50%. Turkey, the Republic of Korea, China, India and Indonesia were among the top 5 steel exporters to the continent in 2025.
The main issue is the allocation. According to a temporary agreement text reached between EU institutions, the bloc plans to give most of the duty-free steel import quota to its existing and future free trade partners. Thus, for countries like China, which doesn't have free trade agreement with the EU, will get even less duty-free quotas.
Why is the European Union adopting this new framework? The document published by the EU Council notes that the move aims at protecting its steel markets from what they call the negative trade-related effects of global overcapacity. But is this the truth?
A document released by the European Commission notes that by 2025, EU electricity prices were 2 to 3 times higher than those in the United States, and natural gas prices were close to 5 times higher. In other words, the industry's core challenges stem primarily from internal competitiveness issues.
In fact, one of the first sectors likely to be affected is Europe's own downstream manufacturing industry. For example, the European Automobile Manufacturers Association pointed out that if import levels remain consistent with those of 2024, downstream industries could face an additional 5 billion to 9 billion euros in tariff costs annually.
The European Union Joint Research Centre also pointed out that the demand for electrical steel in the EU mainly depends on China and the Republic of Korea, which shows that its green transformation automobile industry are based on the cross-border supply chains.
The measure has triggered widespread reactions. As early as November 2025, the WTO listed the EU's steel measures as a specific trade concern.
The Chinese steel industry strongly opposes the relevant measures of the European Union. The EU should abide by and correctly apply WTO rules, abandon zero-sum thinking, resolve concerns through dialogue and communication, and achieve mutual benefit and win-win results.
WTO rules clearly stipulate that when a member modifies its tariff reduction commitments, it must engage in compensation negotiations with the member whose interests have been damaged and maintain a general level of commitment that is not lower than the original level. If negotiations cannot be reached, the affected members may also withdraw the substantial equivalent concessions, which is a built-in retaliatory right given to the affected members, including China.
CGTN, Beijing.
U.S. Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are in Doha, but direct talks with Iran are not on the table. Qatari mediators will facilitate technical discussions on implementing the bilateral memorandum of understanding. Our Walter Morris in Washington, D.C. has more.
A senior Qatari official confirmed that top U.S. negotiators will not have high-level meetings with Iranian officials this week. But technical talks through mediators will take place, and that could lead to more senior-level discussions down the road. U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Doha Tuesday. Despite claims from the White House that they would hold high-level meetings, a spokesman for Qatar's foreign ministry says that won't happen. Officials say indirect dialogue through mediators will likely begin Wednesday. The negotiators will reportedly focus on implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding signed by the United States and Iran. A spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry said no meeting at any level with the American side has been scheduled for the coming days. In an address broadcast on state TV, Iran's deputy foreign minister said that Iranian delegation's role is to work with Qatari mediators to ensure that the U.S. upholds its commitments under the MOU. And Tuesday, Iran's top negotiator reasserted Tehran's right to control the Strait of Hormuz, saying toll-free passage is only guaranteed for 60 days under the MOU. He says Iran will never compromise its rights in the Strait, and they won't enter further negotiations until the conditions of the MOU are met. Walter Morris, CGTN, Washington.
And reviewing a turbulent first half of the year as gold and oil saw their trajectories reverse, caught in volatile trade as geopolitical risks rattled investor sentiment. Gold's reputation as a safe haven asset has come under pressure. After surging 66% in 2025, the rally extended into this year before reversing sharply following U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran on the last day of February. The U.S. gold futures are down more than 8% year-to-date, settling below $4,000 an ounce on Wednesday. That would be a 7-month low. Meanwhile, Brent crude has fallen back to pre-conflict levels after peaking at $126 a barrel in late April, a 4-year high. The global benchmark hovered around $73 per barrel on Wednesday as traders weighed the prospect of fresh talks between the U.S. and Iran in Doha. All right, a quick check now on some headlines from the corporate world. German automaker BMW saying it will start making fully electric cars in the U.S. in its newly expanded manufacturing site in South Carolina. Anthropic says the U.S. Commerce Department has lifted export controls on its most advanced AI models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5. This comes less than 3 weeks after the company was ordered to cut access to those models over national security concerns. And Microsoft could cut up to 2.5% of its workforce in the near term as rising AI spending reshapes company priorities. A Business Insider report said the new layoffs would impact thousands of jobs, primarily in sales, consulting, and its Xbox teams. Well, speaking of AI, it's been a brutal month for U.S. big tech shares. The Magnificent Seven, that's Microsoft, Nvidia, Alphabet, Apple, Meta, Tesla, and Amazon, have seen over $2 trillion wiped off their combined market value. Investors are clearly jittery about their massive spending when it comes to AI. Our Mitch McCann reports from New York.
Investors still appear to be backing technology stocks in terms of chips and semiconductors, just not the Magnificent Seven. As you mentioned, around $2.3 trillion has been wiped off from the group's combined market value, reflecting growing uncertainty over whether the hundreds of billions of dollars that's been spent on AI chips and data centers is actually going to deliver the returns that investors have been expecting and hoping for. And that uncertainty has been building for some time. Recent trading suggests that investors have become even less convinced over the past month. Now, Microsoft has led the losses here. A short time ago, I had a look. It was down around 20% for the month, which is obviously significant. Nvidia down around 12%. So some heavy losses over the last 30 days there. And we're going to get a clearer picture in July, in the coming weeks, when companies begin reporting their second quarter earnings, which should provide more insight into whether or not those massive AI investments are starting to pay off. And around where investors are putting their money, semiconductors are one area that's attracting interest. This Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, which includes companies like Micron, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is reportedly up around 6% this month. It's in a sharp contrast to the losses I've just mentioned around the Magnificent Seven. So people looking at chips, semiconductors, not as much at the Mag 7 companies at the moment.
And that's going to wrap up this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Coming up next here on CGTN is The World Today with Ho Na. We'll see you again next time.